After 20 years of building their empire, my boss fired me, called me outdated, and thought I'd fade away quietly. But he was about to learn how wrong he was. For 20 years, I gave everything to that Chicago tech firm. My name's Mike, and I was the guy who closed deals others only dreamed of. Picture me at my desk, city lights flickering through the window, grinding late while my wife and kids slept at home. I wasn't just good, I was the best, top salesperson. Year after year, clients trusted me like family. My handshake meant something. Loyalty meant something, or so I thought. Then Greg, my boss, called me into his office. I sat across from him, blinds half drawn, his smug grin cutting deeper than his words. "You're outdated, Mike," he said. "We need fresh blood." Outdated. After 2 decades of carrying his company on my back, my jaw clenched. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I didn't beg. I walked out, head high, but my chest burned. 20 years, and he tossed me aside like yesterday's news. Why? For what? I went home that night, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at my laptop. The email came at 9:32 p.m. Termination notice, effective immediately. My hands shook as I read it. My wife, Sarah, squeezed my shoulder. "We'll figure it out," she whispered, but I couldn't look at her. I felt like I'd failed. The mortgage, the kids' college funds, the car payments, they all loomed like storm clouds. I'd built my life on that job, my identity. And Greg, he didn't even have the guts to say it to my face. Just an email, cold and final. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Greg smirk, hearing his voice. Outdated. Me, the guy who brought in $1.7 million in sales last quarter alone. I paced the living room, our dog Max trailing me like he knew something was wrong. I wasn't just mad. I was gutted, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. I opened my laptop again, scrolling through old client emails. That's when I saw it, a thread buried deep, a mistake Greg thought he'd covered up. Shady deals, cut corners, numbers that didn't add up. My pulse raced. He thought he could bury me. He didn't know I had dirt on him. The next morning, I drove downtown, not to the office, to a coffee shop where I used to meet clients. I sat in the corner, sipping black coffee, my mind spinning. My clients weren't just contracts. I earned their trust. Handshakes sealed it. Late night calls kept it strong. Promises never broke. They trusted me, not Greg, not his company, me. And I had proof of his lies. Emails, documents, timestamps, all of it locked away in my personal drive. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. One move, and I could end him. But I waited. I needed to be smart. I thought about my dad, a steel worker who never backed down from a fight. He taught me to stand tall, no matter what. Greg didn't get that. He thought I'd roll over. He thought wrong. I wasn't just some employee he could discard. I was Mike Thompson, the guy who built his empire, and I was coming for him. By 6 p.m., my phone buzzed, Greg's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. His voice cracked through the speaker, nervous, fake friendly. "Mike, let's talk. We can work this out." Too late. Greg. I leaned back in my chair, the city skyline glowing outside. Something big was brewing, and he had no idea what was coming. Greg thought he could replace me with his kid brother. He didn't know he just lit the fuse to his own collapse. I sat in that coffee shop, staring at the steam rising from my cup, my mind replaying Greg's voicemail. His fake friendly tone made my skin crawl. Talk it out? After he threw me out like trash? No way. I wasn't going back to beg, but the anger wasn't just about him. It was about me. 20 years of loyalty, of late nights and missed family dinners, all for a company that didn't blink when it cut me loose. I felt like a fool. My whole life was tied to that job, and now I was staring at a bank account that wouldn't last the month. Greg's big plan was his brother, Tyler, a 22-year-old fresh out of college, with a shiny degree and zero clue how to handle clients. Poor kid thought he could fill my shoes. He tripped before he started. I'd seen him around the office before I left, strutting like he owned the place. Greg handed him my accounts, my clients, my deals, the ones I'd spent years building. Tyler didn't know the first thing about keeping those relationships tight. He didn't know that Mrs. Carter at Horizon Tech liked her coffee black and her contracts airtight, or that Mr. Patel from Apex Solutions needed a call every Monday to feel valued. Those weren't just deals. They were trust, built on years of handshakes and promises kept. Tyler thought he could waltz in and take over. He was wrong. It took 1 week for the cracks to show. I got a call from Mrs. Carter on a Tuesday morning. I was in my kitchen, flipping through bills I couldn't pay, when my phone lit up. "Mike, what's going on?" she said, her voice sharp. "This new kid can't even read a contract right." She told me Tyler botched a $2.3 million deal with Horizon, fumbled the terms, missed deadlines, acted like it was a game. She was pulling her business. I apologized, my heart sinking, not for the company but for her. She trusted me, and I wasn't there to fix it. More calls came. Patel, then Johnson from Core Dynamics, then half a dozen others. Clients I'd known for years. People who'd sent me Christmas cards, who'd met my kids at company picnics. They were furious, not just at Tyler, but at the company for letting me go. By Friday, the news hit. Horizon pulled out completely. Apex followed. Core Dynamics put their contract on hold. The company's revenue took a nosedive, down 30% in a single week. Greg's empire was crumbling, and he had no one to blame but himself. I should have felt good, watching it fall apart, but I didn't. I was drowning. The bills kept coming. Mortgage, car payments, my daughter's college tuition. I sat at the kitchen table every night, staring at numbers that didn't add up. Sarah tried to keep things light, making meatloaf like it was just another Tuesday, but I saw the worry in her eyes. Max, our golden retriever, would nudge my leg, sensing the weight I carried. I'd rub his ears, trying to hold it together. 20 years of grinding, of being the guy everyone counted on, and here I was, humiliated. My pride was in pieces. I'd walk past my kids' rooms, hearing their laughter, and feel like I'd let them down. I wasn't just unemployed, I was invisible. Greg didn't stop. His emails flooded my inbox, each one more desperate. "Mike, we're losing everything. You gotta help." I didn't reply, but his words stung. Not because I cared about him, but because they reminded me how much I'd lost. I'd given that company my prime years. I'd skipped my son's baseball games, worked through anniversaries, all to build something I thought mattered. And for what? To be called outdated? To be replaced by a kid who couldn't tie his own shoes in this business? I wasn't sleeping anymore. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I was angry, sure, but something else was growing. Resolve. I wasn't going down like this. I started digging. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I'd open my laptop and comb through old emails. I'd kept everything, every contract, every client note, every memo, years of data stored on a personal drive Greg never knew about. That's when I found it. A string of emails from Greg to a supplier, cutting corners on a major project. He'd fudged numbers, skimmed funds, and passed it off as cost-saving. It was sloppy, reckless, and it put clients at risk. My hands shook as I read them. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal, not just of me, but of everyone who trusted us. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the laptop lighting up the dark room. Outside, Chicago's skyline blinked, steady and unyielding. I thought about my dad again. He'd worked in a steel mill, hands calloused, back bent, but he never let anyone walk over him. "You don't just take a hit, Mike," he'd say. "You hit back harder." I wasn't going to let Greg win. I had the proof. I had the clients. I had the truth. But I needed a plan. I started calling my old contacts, not to beg for work, but to listen. Mrs. Carter told me she'd only stayed with the company because of me. Patel said the same. They weren't just clients. They were allies. I met them quietly, in coffee shops and hotel lobbies, away from Greg's radar. I didn't push. I just talked, reminded them why they trusted me, why they still could. They didn't need a company. They needed a person, and that person was me. One night, I was at O'Hare's airport bar, meeting a client who'd flown in from Denver. He leaned across the table, voice low. "Mike, we're with you? Just say the word." I nodded, my heart pounding. Something was shifting. I wasn't just a fired employee anymore. I was a threat. Greg's voicemails kept coming, each one more frantic. "Mike, name your price. Come back." I deleted them. He didn't get it. This wasn't about money. It was about respect. By the end of the month, the company was bleeding. Social media buzzed with rumors of their collapse. Employees were jumping ship. Tyler, poor kid, was in over his head, scrambling to save deals he didn't understand. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But Greg, he'd made his bed. I wasn't going to lie in it for him. I sat in my car one evening, parked outside my house, the engine still running. The radio played some old Springsteen song about fighting for your place in the world. I turned it off and looked at my phone. An email from Mrs. Carter. Subject: "Ready when you are." I smiled for the first time in weeks. Greg thought he'd crush me. He was wrong. My plan was ready. He'd never see the storm coming. I was down, but not out. I had a secret weapon, and Greg was about to learn he'd picked the wrong fight. Sitting in my car that evening, with the Chicago skyline glowing like a promise, I felt something shift inside me. For weeks, I'd been reeling, my world rocked by Greg's betrayal. But now, I wasn't just angry. I was ready. I'd spent years building relationships that ran deeper than any contract. My clients weren't just names in a database. They were people who trusted me, who believed in me when Greg didn't. And I had something else. Proof. Hard, undeniable proof that Greg had been playing dirty. It was time to turn the tables. I'd always been careful, meticulous. Every email, every deal, every late-night call with a client. I kept records, not because I didn't trust people, but because I knew trust could be broken. My personal drive was a vault, packed with years of correspondence. Most of it was routine, client updates, contract notes, but buried in there was dynamite. Emails from Greg to a shady supplier, cutting corners on a $3.5 million project for Horizon Tech. He'd inflated costs, pocketed the difference, and lied to the board about it. It wasn't just unethical, it was illegal, and I had the receipts. I leaned back in my car seat, the engine still humming, my heart pounding like a drum. I could still hear my dad's voice, rough from years in the steel mill. "Don't just take a hit, Mike, hit back harder." I wasn't going to let Greg walk away clean, not after he threw me out like I was nothing, but I had to be smart. I couldn't just storm into the office and wave those emails in his face. I needed a plan, a way to make sure he felt the weight of what he'd done. I started with my clients. Over the next few days, I reached out, quiet and careful. No emails, no texts, just face-to-face meetings, the kind you can't trace. I met Mrs. Carter at a diner off Michigan Avenue, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like home. She stirred her coffee, her eyes sharp. "Mike, we never wanted anyone else," she said. "You're the reason we stayed." I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't ask her to leave the company. I didn't have to. She was already halfway out the door, fed up with Tyler's fumbles and Greg's lies. Then there was Mr. Patel, who I met at a hotel bar near O'Hare. He leaned forward, his voice low over the clink of glasses. "Mike, you say the word, We're with you. I smiled, but inside, my mind was racing. These weren't just clients. They were my allies, my lifeline, one by one. I reached out to the others, Johnson from Core Dynamics, Lee from Apex Solutions. Every conversation was the same. They didn't trust the company anymore. They trusted me, and I was starting to see a path forward. But it wasn't just about the clients. I needed to hit Greg where it hurt, the board. They didn't know about his shady deals. He'd kept them in the dark, feeding them polished reports while skimming profits. I spent nights piecing it together, cross-referencing emails with contract logs. It was a puzzle, and I was good at puzzles. I checked the file. It was ready. Greg was done. I kept my moves quiet. Greg was still sending voicemails, each one more desperate. Mike, let's meet. We can fix this. I didn't answer. I pictured him in his office, pacing, sweating, watching his empire crack. He thought he could charm his way out of this. He thought I'd fold. He didn't know me at all. I wasn't the guy who'd walked out of his office, head high but heart heavy. I was someone new, someone who'd learned how to fight back. I started laying the groundwork. I reached out to a friend, Sarah, who worked in the company's legal department, not as an employee, but as someone I'd known since we were kids. We'd grown up in the same Chicago neighborhood, played basketball in the same park. She'd always had my back. I met her at a park bench near Lake Michigan, the wind sharp off the water. I didn't show her the file. Not yet, but I told her enough. Her eyes widened. Mike, this is big, she said. You sure you want to do this? I looked out at the lake, waves crashing against the shore. I don't have a choice, I said. She nodded. She was in. Every step felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong move, and Greg might catch wind. But I was careful. I met clients in out-of-the-way places, used burner apps for calls, kept my laptop offline when I wasn't working. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was protecting my family. Sarah, my wife, knew something was up. She'd catch me staring at my laptop at 2 a.m., Max curled up at my feet. Mike, you okay? She'd ask, her voice soft. I'd nod, but my jaw was tight. I couldn't tell her yet, not until I was sure. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. The file was ready, a ticking bomb. My clients were poised, ready to move when I gave the signal. Sarah from legal had quietly tipped off a board member she trusted, planting the seed that something was coming. I sat in my car one night, parked outside our house, the street quiet except for the hum of crickets. I opened my laptop one last time, checking the file. It was airtight. Greg's lies, his greed, his betrayal, all laid bare. I closed the screen, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. I thought about my kids, sleeping inside, my daughter, dreaming of college, my son, still wearing his baseball glove to bed. I'd fought for them my whole life. I wasn't going to stop now. Greg thought he'd taken everything from me. He thought he'd won, but I had one move left, and it was going to change everything. The boardroom was waiting. I had the truth in my hands, and Greg was about to learn what happens when you betray the wrong man. I stood outside the company's downtown Chicago office, the glass tower reflecting the morning sun. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. For weeks, I'd been building to this moment. My laptop bag felt heavier than usual, carrying the file that could end Greg's reign. Emails, contracts, proof of his greed. It was all there, a ticking bomb I'd carefully assembled. I adjusted my tie, took a deep breath, and walked through the revolving doors. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice. The board meeting was set for 10 a.m. I wasn't invited, but Sarah, my friend in legal, had worked her magic. She'd tipped off a board member, Miss Ellison, a no-nonsense woman who'd always respected my work. I'd sent her a teaser of the evidence the night before, just enough to get me in the room. As I stepped into the elevator, the polished steel reflected my face. I didn't look like a man who'd been broken. I looked like a man ready to fight. The boardroom was quiet when I arrived. 10 executives sat around a long mahogany table, their faces a mix of curiosity and impatience. Greg was at the head, his suit crisp, his smile forced. Tyler sat next to him, fidgeting, his tie loose like he'd already given up. Mike? Greg's voice cracked, his eyes narrowing. What's this about? I didn't answer. I walked to the front, plugged my laptop into the projector, and turned on the screen. The room went still. I started slow. I gave this company 20 years, I said, my voice calm but firm. I built relationships, closed deals worth millions, and you called me outdated. Greg shifted in his seat, his smirk fading. The screen flashed. I clicked to the first slide. An email from Greg to a supplier, dated 6 months ago. Reduce the specs, it read. Cut costs by $1.2 million. No one will notice. The board leaned forward. I clicked again. Another email, approving shoddy materials for Horizon Tech's project. Then another, showing the money he'd pocketed. The numbers didn't lie. Greg did. The room erupted. Miss Ellison's voice cut through. Greg, explain this. His jaw dropped. He stammered, his face red. This is a misunderstanding, he said, his hands waving. Mike's twisting things. I didn't flinch. I clicked to the next slide. A bank transfer. His name, his account. $500,000, siphoned from the project. The board gasped. Tyler stared at the floor, his face pale. I stood tall, letting the truth do the talking. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I spoke to Mrs. Carter that morning. She confirmed it. Horizon was done. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. Horizon was done with Greg's company. So was Apex Solutions. Core Dynamics was next. The dominoes were falling, and I'd given them the push. I looked at Greg, his eyes wide, sweat beading on his forehead. You thought you could replace me with your brother, I said, my voice low. You thought you could cheat and win. You were wrong. The board didn't wait. Ms. Ellison stood, her voice like steel. Greg, step outside, now. He tried to protest, but 2 security guards appeared at the door. The room was silent as he walked out, his head down, Tyler trailing behind like a lost puppy. I unplugged my laptop and nodded to Miss Ellison. She didn't smile, but her eyes said enough. I'd done what I came to do. By noon, my phone was lighting up. Clients were pulling contracts left and right. Horizon's $2.3 million deal was gone. Apex's $1.8 million contract followed. Core Dynamics froze their $4 million project. The company's stock plummeted, social media buzzing with whispers of scandal. Greg's name was everywhere, and not in a good way. I sat in my car, watching the news break on my phone. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for him, but I didn't. He'd made his choice when he threw me out. That night, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Greg's voice, shaky, desperate. Mike, please, come back. We need you. Name your price. I let the words hang in the air, my thumb hovering over the end call button. I pictured his office, empty, his nameplate gone, the city skyline mocking him through the window. Greg, I said, my voice steady, you made a mistake. I'm not your fix. I hung up. My chest felt lighter, like I'd finally exhaled. I drove home, the radio playing a Tom Petty song about standing your ground. I turned it up, the music filling the car. Sarah was waiting in the kitchen, Max wagging his tail at her feet. What happened? She asked, her eyes searching mine. I smiled, a real one this time. It's done, I said. She hugged me, her arms tight, and for a moment, I felt like myself again. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, the news hit. Greg was out. The board had voted unanimously, his resignation effective immediately. Tyler was reassigned, a desk job with no clients. The company was scrambling. But it was too late. The clients I'd built relationships with were already looking elsewhere. And they were looking at me. I earned their trust over years. Now it paid off. Greg could never imagine how. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, staring at my laptop, an email from Ms. Ellison. Mike, we'd like to talk. I didn't reply right away. I leaned back, Max nudging my leg, the morning sun streaming through the window. I'd taken down Greg. But this wasn't just about revenge. It was about what came next. I'd fought for my family, my pride, my future. And I wasn't done fighting. Greg's empire was in ashes. I wasn't done. I built my own, and it was stronger than he could ever imagine. I stood in my kitchen that morning, sunlight streaming through the window, warming the oak table where my family had shared countless dinners. My coffee mug sat next to my laptop, steam curling upward like a quiet promise. Greg was gone, his name erased from the company he thought he owned. The Tribune ran a piece about the worker who toppled a corrupt boss. On Twitter, people rallied, sharing their stories of being pushed out, using "right, take back your worth." But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. I'd taken him down. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about rebuilding, about proving I was more than the man he tried to break. I opened my laptop and stared at an email from Mrs. Carter at Horizon Tech. Mike, we're ready to work with you. Just you. My heart skipped. Then another email from Mr. Patel at Apex Solutions. Name the terms. We're in. One by one. They came. Core Dynamics. Lee Enterprises. Half the clients I'd spent years nurturing were ready to follow me. Not the company. Me. I leaned back in my chair, Max nudging my leg with his wet nose. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift. I wasn't just a fired employee. I was a man with a future. I didn't waste time. I filed the paperwork that week, my hands steady as I signed the forms. Thompson Solutions, my company, my name. No glass tower, not yet. Just a small office in a brick building off Michigan Avenue, with a desk, a coffee maker, and a view of the city I'd fought for. I didn't need a corner office or a fancy title. I needed my clients, my work, my purpose, and I had them. Horizon signed a $2.5 million contract the first day. Apex followed with $1.9 million. By the end of the month, I'd taken nearly half the company's client base. Not out of spite, out of trust. I hired a small team, people I knew from the old days. Honest workers, like me, who'd been overlooked too long. Sarah, my friend from legal, joined as my advisor. She sat across from me in our new office, her eyes bright. "You did it, Mike," she said, her voice warm. "You turned it around." I nodded, but I didn't smile. I was proud, but I hadn't forgotten the cost. The sleepless nights, the bills piling up, the way my kids looked at me when I thought I'd failed them. This wasn't just a win, it was redemption. The old company didn't recover. Without its top clients, it bled money. The stock crashed, offices closed, and whispers of bankruptcy filled the news. Tyler reached out, his voice quiet over the phone. "Mike, I didn't know what Greg was doing," he said. "I'm sorry." I listened, my jaw tight. He was young, caught in his brother's mess. "Learn from this. Tyler," I told him. "You've got time to do better." He thanked me, his voice breaking. I hung up, hoping he'd find his way. I'd found mine. My story didn't stay quiet. It spread across Chicago, then nationwide. I read their posts late at night, Max curled up at my feet. "I was fired for speaking up," one wrote. "They called me replaceable," said another. It hit me hard. I wasn't alone, and neither were they. My fight became a spark, a call for others to stand up, to demand fairness, to take control. I sat with my wife one evening, the kids asleep upstairs. We were on the porch, the Chicago skyline glowing in the distance. She held my hand, her fingers warm against mine. "I'm proud of you," she said. I looked at her, my heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you," I said, and I meant it. She'd been my anchor when I was drowning, my reason to keep going. This wasn't just my victory, it was ours. I learned something through all this. Loyalty matters, but only if you're smart about it. Give your heart to the people who deserve it. Your family, your allies, yourself. I built something new. It was mine. Greg's betrayal couldn't define me. I took a hit, but I hit back harder, just like my dad taught me. I'm talking to you now. Ever been pushed aside at work? Had your loyalty spit back in your face? Felt you were worth more than they said? I've been there. I know that fire in your gut. Drop your story on Twitter with "Take Back Your Worth." Let's show the world what happens when we fight back. The skyline's still glowing, and I'm just getting started. That's my story. My boss fired me after 20 years for being outdated. His desperate emails started a week later. After 2 decades of loyalty, Greg's betrayal lit the fire for my revenge. From a boss-fired loyal worker Chicago Revenge Reddit Stories Radio TTS tale to uncovering a 20 years job lost boss fraud Revenge Reddit Stories Radio TTS scandal, I didn't just walk away, I fought back. Now, the boss regrets firing loyal employee Revenge Reddit Stories Radio TTS, and that regret haunts him every day. If you love Reddit revenge stories or crave the thrill of Revenge Reddit Stories Radio TTS, hit like, drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Let's keep the fire of justice burning.